Welcome back, everyone, to the Me and Jesse podcast. I am Mark Pavlich, and away in the Grove, the big sexy Elvis coming in hot.
What
The
up?
one and only Jesse Martineau, everybody.
Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Welcome to the Me and Jesse podcast. How you been, Mark?
Well, it's good. We had coffee. We got to actually see each other. Most people think that you and I hang out every day together, and I tried to explain to them that you're extremely busy and I'm busy, and so I said no. But we had coffee last week together.
Yep.
And he had to send me the Google coordinates to this place. Okay. It was literally like top secret location. And then when we got there, it was fantastic. So that will be a place I definitely visit again. But it was really good. And it was so funny because I literally have to keep the Google coordinates because I don't even remember how to get there.
Yeah, you just trust the maps. Just as long as it doesn't drive you into a lake, then you'll be good.
That's right.
You know who needs directions? Well, the Lions, because the Lions are going to the conference finals, and they've never been this way before. So they need some directions on how to get through this into the Super Bowl.
It's incredible. Their coach is basically easily the most inspirational coach of the year.
Really?
He
Over Dion.
He took it. He convinced these guys of what's what. Being from that area, I am rooting for them immensely because I love Eric Harris, okay? And Eric Harris is now on the San Francisco 49ers. But I grew up as a Lions fan when I was a kid up to a young adult, and literally it was the most dysfunctional organization on the planet.
Yeah.
Until I became a Raiders fan, and then realized that dysfunctionality has many different faces.
Wow, someone should put that on a T-shirt because that was well said. I agree with you immensely. It's true, but the Lions somehow go through, and or in the final they play on the Niners. It's tough, but on the other side of the ball, the Bills lose. Tough, but okay. It's that was a toss up. Now it's the Chiefs.
Can we get some
Ravens.
officiating? Can we talk about the officiating?
Oh, geez.
These phantom pass interference calls that they called on Buffalo.
Well, Mahomes ain't complaining now. He ain't complaining now. Remember his tirade that he went off that he lost?
I do remember.
In a regular season game. Playoffs, 2 years in a row now. They get these calls. Super Bowl last year. And you don't hear him complaining now.
I can't stand him.
Me
like
either.
When I look at him, I just get it's just disturbing. I don't like him. I don't like anything to do with him. I think, like I said, he's the guy that doesn't shake other quarterbacks' hands when they beat them. He is a sore loser, and he's not a gracious winner. So I'm not a fan whatsoever of that guy.
No,
Never
Patrick
will be.
Mahomes can. I hope the Ravens come out there and run it down their throat.
Well, I'll be watching that game because I think the Ravens will put it on them because they struggled immensely with Buffalo. I thought Buffalo should have won the game. They had some horrible calls. And once again, don't forget Scott Norwood many years ago, wide right. It happened again in this game, wide right from about the exact same distance, 44 yards, I think it was. In an NFL right now, 44 yards is basically a glorified chip shot.
Yeah.
And he missed it wide right. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God, that team is cursed.
It is. It really is. The Bills are cursed. There's no question about it. You go to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row and you get, you lose all of them. You lose them all. That's crazy. 4 years in a row. When's the last time that happened? And so
it hasn't.
Yeah, that was them, I think. So yeah, and now this, and they just can't buy it. The Chiefs are their bane of their existence. As the Patriots were doing to people for years. But, now the Chiefs are there. But I really hope the Ravens put it on the Chiefs. I do not want to see Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl again.
I do not. And I really pray that
yeah.
Yeah, I do.
But then the Niners and Lions, which, on paper, yeah, okay, the Niners should take this. But.
They should.
But, the Niners came down to the wire with them and the Packers. So, and the Packers, I was so bad on the Packers this year, and then they
should have won.
Yeah, they proved something different. I thought it was a joke. I thought they were going to be horrible, and they really the second half of the season they came out firing, And
if I'm a Green Bay fan and I see my quarterback Love now,
yeah,
I'm excited.
yeah,
I'm
there's actually
very
something
excited.
there. You know, they improve that run game or whatever, and they don't have a ton of weapons, so it is interesting. But they, as you said with the Lions, like they made them a unit, and it's working again. So I think that, you know, I would love to see a repeat Niners Ravens in the Super Bowl, but it would be cool to see the Lions there. I just don't think the Lions have any chance in the Super Bowl even if they go through the Niners.
That's the problem. If they beat the Niners, I don't think they do either.
Yeah.
And so we're going to watch a Super Bowl that's 42-7.
Yeah.
You know, and I
and the
don't
last number of
that.
Super Bowls actually been pretty good. So
they have. There's been a flip in that. There's been a flip.
So it would be nice to see the Niners and winner of Chiefs Ravens. Either way, like I think whoever the Niners would play between the Chiefs and the Ravens would be a pretty solid game, I'd think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, I mean, that would be a great Super Bowl tee up. But again, this week, I mean, this is where it gets fun. I love this. The next 3 weeks. I mean, obviously, there's a gap week there. But this week with the two semis and then the Super Bowl obviously coming up too, which I love the Super Bowl. It's my second favorite holiday.
Happiest day of the world and saddest all at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
We've agreed to that. And it's just horrendous how long. Like, we were excited because they added a week.
Yeah. Right.
Now there's, you know, and then we're like, no, it has to be 24. And people go, that's insane. That's like a season and a half. I said, I don't care. It's too long.
I don't know. But here's I'll play devil's advocate because I love it too. But maybe the reason, because one thing we say, like, as much as you could love hockey or basketball, it's long. And it takes away from it. So I'm wondering if a lot of it is because it is shorter and we like really get amped up in the off season because we're like craving it again.
Okay,
and if they made it longer.
18 games. No 17 games, 18 games.
Okay, we can settle at 18.
18 games makes sense. Gives us a titch a little bit longer because it is so painful to wait. And you know what's funny? Even if you make the playoffs and you get knocked out in the first round.
Oh yeah.
You only played one more game than my Raiders played.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm saying is it's short for everybody.
Yeah.
So I just want it longer. It's like for me, it's like there's no question. It's my absolute favorite thing to watch. There's you know what's funny? MMA and boxing are a distant second compared to watching NFL football.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I agree. It is easily my favorite sport to watch. There's no question.
I love it. I can watch 3 games.
I love
in a
F1
day.
too. I mean, it's definitely rivaled a lot this year. But you know, if I had to pick between the Super Bowl and like it would be the Super Bowl every time. I don't think there would be anything I'd watch different.
I can watch 3 games, 4 games a week. I can watch the early game, the best early game. I can watch my game, and I can watch the night game on a Sunday. That's 3 games I watch fully every Sunday. Then I watch the Monday night game.
Yeah.
That's 4 games now. And on occasion, I watch the Thursday night, but that's a struggle for me.
Yeah,
Thursday,
I want them to get rid of that game. That
me
game
too.
Sucks.
I think it's bullshit.
Do a doubleheader on Monday if you need to do that.
Yeah, which is cool too. I love that.
Yeah.
So do the doubleheader on the Monday. Get rid of the Thursday night football. I don't like it, but I usually watch 4 games a week, and I religiously watch 4 games a week, and it doesn't matter. I do.
Yeah, and I'd rather watch like the worst horrible game in the NFL than the best possible game that could possibly happen in the CFL.
Oh, I agree. I agree, and it's not putting down the CFL, but
no, it's putting down the CFL.
Yeah, because you know why? The CFL is allowing you to do so because they literally can watch everything. They can watch what the NFL is doing.
They have eyes too.
Yeah, correct. And they're not doing that. They're so far off base right now. It is sliding at a catastrophic stage where I don't even think it can come back to the regular when you used to get at least 40,000, 50,000 for an Edmonton Eskimo
like even
Elks game.
the Rough Riders who you know Saskatchewan has, you know, that's the only thing they have to live for in Saskatchewan, and so even their attendance was starting to dip, and they like okay, so now what's the problem? So they have to do something, and you know they almost did it when COVID happened, and it was going to be, we were so excited about that, and then they pulled back and didn't make that merger. But you know I don't know, I just don't like it at all. I wish that became something else, but it just isn't, and they won't bend. Like they think that it's better. They think people that don't really know watch the CFL and think it's better. They say it's better. They don't watch it. They just say, "Oh, CFL game is better than the NFL," and you're like, you have no reference. You're just saying things.
You mean giving 5 yards to the kicker?
Oh my
5
gosh,
yards.
I hate that.
Yeah, which is okay. And then when you get a point,
for missing
a field goal,
hey, we'll give you a point. That's so Canadian, isn't it? We'll give you a point.
If they don't run it out,
yeah,
it's a point.
Yeah,
and the guy running it out can actually physically kick it back.
Right.
That's not football anymore, everybody. That's rugby.
Yeah. They had a little mix up there when they were making those rules.
It's a mix up. So, when you tell me, Len Rhodes was a good friend. He used to be the president of the Eskimos.
Yeah.
Awesome guy. They're wishing he was there now.
Right.
And you look at what, and he tried his best to make it cool. But since that day, since Len Rhodes left and they changed the name, and they literally have not been a good team in any way.
No.
It is sliding drastically. Literally horrible parking. The stadium the stadium is way too big for what the team does. You literally feel like you're in another area code when you're watching the actual game.
Yeah.
It's horrendous. I can't even stomach it. And there was a time when I could go and at least stomach it. Now I can't even stomach it.
No. And again, you and I both agree. Like we'll take, an Edmonton Stingers game any day of the week.
Oh, it's not even close.
Yeah, we'll be there 8 in the morning if we have to, versus going to the best CFL game there.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Because
Stinger's best bang for the buck in the city of Edmonton. Yeah. I'll say it a million
times.
It
is true.
Bang for the buck. You can afford for your family to go. Do it tomorrow. Get Stingers tickets. Jesse and I have no affiliation with the Stingers, and I'm telling you right now, bang for the buck. Best money spent.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, people should really jump on the Canadian Elite Basketball League, because the dip, and we've said this many times, but the difference between that and the NBA is much narrower than it is between the CFL and the NFL. So if you want to watch watch the Canadian Elite Basketball League, because the gap is much smaller than it is for the CFL. It's great. It's awesome. And they do some cool things, and they listen to the fans, and they make it fun for the fans too. And to me, that's what it's entertainment. It's supposed to be entertaining.
Well, that aggregate scoring at the end, whatever they do there,
the Elam ending. Yeah, it's so
cool. Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic idea.
I like it a lot. Well, Spicy P got traded.
Unfortunately, but maybe
people are upset, but I don't disagree with this move.
But listen, the team's looking good right now. And you know what else I like? I think they still can make the playoffs.
Well, they got, their draft coming up. Like, they have pieces to trade away for a player too. That's what people forget. Like, you got all these picks in the first round next year. You can trade some of those for someone else. You don't have to just draft. So there's we got a lot of assets here in the Raptors that easily could turn this around quickly. And we got Scotty Barnes and man,
let Scotty Barnes be the number one. And watch this kid. No, he is. But what I'm saying is, he'll be a legit number one in the whole NBA.
Yeah, no,
he will be.
And hey, man, resurgence of RJ Barrett. Like, RJ Barrett's starting to play good. So you're like, okay, all right. In Masai, we trust. Remember when people were pissed about the
totally agree.
The DeRozan stuff, but we won a championship, and it's nice to have, like, you look after, but we won a championship. That was the point, and it's about, like, at the time it was right to do it,
moving those pieces.
Yeah, and now it was the right time to, like, okay, let's move this, get as much as we can for this stuff right now, and build really quickly for the next thing, because it looks like it could be, and if we trust in Masai, then I think it's not too long off before they're in that right back in it. Hey, we'll be right back, everybody, on the Me and Jesse podcast.
Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau. Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. I am Mark Pavlich, away in the grove, the big, sexy Jesse Martineau, and our special guest today, everybody, the one and only four-time MMA champion, kickboxing champion, Julia Budd. And there, the great round of applause comes from the back.
Yes, thanks so much for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Hey, we can't complain. It's warmer than it was. It was really cold up here in Canada.
You know, Julia, we get a lot of flack because people always say, you know, we're walking around or we're on the golf course. People are like, why don't you put any females on your show? And I said, you know what, guys, it's not on purpose. It's not. We are looking. People think, oh, we could just get any guest and that's fine for the Me and Jesse podcast. It's not. They have to be interesting. So whether you're a male, whether you're a female, whether you're gay, straight, black, white, doesn't matter. You got to be interesting. And if you're not, you cannot be on the show. So, Julia, I know that you're very complex. And I mean that in the most positive sense of the word, meaning like you're a four-time MMA champion, you're a kickboxing champion, you're the wife of Lance Gibson, who I love and adore. You are the jewel, right? You're a woman of faith, I do believe, right?
Yeah.
So we have all these dynamics of you today, and we're going to find out more about, because people want to know about you more, and this is the only way they're going to find out.
Yeah, it's true. This podcast right here, you guys, you better tune in.
Now, so there, when you see a person like Sean Strickland do a press conference and he starts talking trash about female MMA and about how the reporters can beat up you know, the girls fighting and things like that, are you mad or are you just confused why someone would say that?
Well, I mean, we've had to deal with it for so long in women's sports, like across the board in every female sport. We're just still kind of proving that we're like, obviously, well, we're not just exciting fighters. We're like exactly multifaceted, and we can, we're amazing athletes too. So, but like a guy like that, he sounds like an idiot. Sorry. He just sounds like a total idiot. And it's like, it's 2024, like get over it. It's not 1952.
Right.
So.
But do you find it like, see, when I watch that, right, and I've been involved in the sporting world for a very long time, and whatever my opinions are, my father always slapped us in the back of the head and said, your opinion, Mark, isn't always necessary. You might think something or you might do something, but he'd give us a big smack in the back of the head, which we deserved. And he would say, shut your mouth. It's not important to it's not important, your opinion on whatever it may be. Do you think it's time that MMA organizations start having a code of conduct when it comes to, like, you see it in the NBA, you see it in the NHL, you see it in the NFL. No one's dropping F-bombs during a press conference at an NHL press conference. No one's dropping F-bombs at an NFL one. You watch everything with MMA now, and it seems like the F word is just protocol. Like, oh, we're going to swear here, and everybody swears. And I thought, who better to ask than you that's been in Strikeforce, Invicta, PFL, Bellator. What do you think? Isn't it time people start getting fined and things like that? Because I know Dana White says it's freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is one thing. Acting like trailer park trash is another.
Yeah, I know. It's such a fine line, right? Because you're like, okay, but you're allowed to say this, but you can't say this. So I think that once you start doing that, then maybe they're afraid that it'll take out some of the like the interest or the hype around like how people sell their fights. And if this guy can't say this, then but can say something else. I don't know. I think that I know you don't want to, he's saying like, I'm not going to censor anyone. I don't keep anyone on leash. I kind of watched what he was saying and stuff. And I liked what he was saying, but because it kind of gives us a chance to fire back. Like, and to me, honestly, like, what did you think was the better fight? His versus Drekus or whatever his name is, or the female fight? I thought the female fight was actually a better title fight. And I think a lot of people did. I didn't think that, Strickland, like, I don't know. I didn't see him do a lot besides the jab. It was really nice in the first couple of rounds, but then after that, like you didn't throw barely any kicks. You didn't really show much besides.
I agree.
Right? So I'm
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
You know what? The girls like jumping the back, submission attempts, submission escapes, like
reversals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other two female Canadians that fought on the card, freaking incredible. Like those girls were like, So I don't know. I think it gives us a chance to be like, look at us.
Right. If there's no limitation on speech, then you're allowed to clap back.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, some of the stuff, I don't like some of the stuff that they are saying about like their child, like, or whatever happened in their past or abuse or any of that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, there should just be like common sense as like people. We don't talk like that. But once you start putting like, okay, you have to behave a certain way or like one of the things I didn't like about PFL is that we're wearing those uniforms and like we can't, part of our fight outfits and stuff is individuality. I would kind of think, I don't know. I'm kind of like, don't censor.
Where do you go now? Where do you go now? Where do you go now? You were in Bellator and then you're now kind of in PFL or like, see, I know. See when I do my research, I can tell. So I'm just confused because listen, I know how old you are and I'm never going to say it on the show.
Yeah.
But you don't look your age, which is fantastic. Every woman, that's fantastic. So, but what I'm saying is that you still have that kill mentality. Like when I watched you fight last, you still have that, like, you're still like, how can I say it? Like, you're just like that. You have that, like, let's fight. Like you want to fight. So that's not gone. So what is the next stage for you as you're coming to an exit, but not at the exit, but you're coming to that area? Where do you fight next? Where do you find your fights?
Well, right now, I'm hoping still with PFL and Bellator, like those, that would be those, well, first of all, the Bellator division, I was basically me and Marloes Kunin were the people that like got that whole division going in Bellator. A couple other girls as well, but there's some good fights there that I would love to fight, like Zingano or Sarah McMahon, or like there's some of the fights in Bellator that I never got to have when I went over to PFL. And it wasn't that there was anything wrong with Bellator when I transitioned to PFL, but I just got to fight like 5 times in 2 years with PFL. The last year it was at 155. That's not my weight class. I'm a bit too small for that weight class, but right now, after my last fight, that was like a contract negotiation that, basically I was supposed to fight Kayla in November. This is actually the first time I've done a podcast or interview since. And then that fell through. There was like, we squashed it though. Like I talked to the organization and I hope to be fighting for them this year. If possible. I'm also interested in boxing. So I don't really know. I just know that there's unified boxing. I'm excited about that.
Can you believe that? Can you believe they did that, Julia? I am sitting, relaxing, living on the 14th hole of a golf course, not even thinking about fighting. I don't even want to know nothing about fighting. And all of a sudden my phone rings and they want me to meet in a boardroom. And they say to me, Mark, we want you to be part owner of Unified Boxing. And I said, are you guys nuts? Like, I'm on the back 9 of my life.
Yeah,
and
how did that happen?
And I'm living in peace. You know, peace. Like there's no swearing anymore. Everything's nice and calm. My wife is happy. And then she looked at me and she knows for me it's like, I don't do drugs, but I would imagine that this would be the equivalency of like spiking yourself with a needle of adrenaline. And immediately I was like losing my mind. And I'm like, my dear friend for many years looks at me and he says, listen, let's stop pretending you don't know how to do this and just go and do it. And then I said, okay, I'll do it. And the next morning I went to bed at 3 a.m. and woke up at 6 and felt like I could kill someone. Like I woke up and I was like, that's what this, I did it for 16 years in MMA and I love every second of it. And the day I stopped, And I didn't stop because I went broke. I didn't stop of anything. I stopped because I just saw my family wasn't like my son was over there, my daughter was over there, my wife was working with me, but we were working all the time. And so I said, no, we're not doing it no more. And that was why. And people are like, oh, has he lost his mind? And I said, no, I don't. I just want to have my family. That to me is everything. Like, so it's still like that. But then all of a sudden they said, okay, we're going to do boxing. And I thought, okay, I'll commit to this many shows this year. And I want male and female boxing. And in MMA, I didn't have female.
No, I know. I remember because MFC, that was actually where I wanted to do my debut in MMA.
But mine was never against female. I am a big advocate of like violence against women, and not saying that you're doing that, but that's how I keep interpreting it into my head. And I'm a big, like, you know, when Dana White got a pass for smacking his wife, I couldn't believe it, because I'm like, to me, that was one of the more disturbing things I've ever seen on a tape about anybody. And he got a pass, and I was like, first of all, he shouldn't get a pass. And I don't have a problem with Dana, but he should never get a pass for that. I mean, how he's still running the organization is beyond I can't even comprehend that. So that was always my thing about it. But then I have a dear friend who's the 8-time world champion female boxer named Jelena Marjinovic. And Jelena came, as Jesse can attest, to our boxing one day. And we boxed in a very private location. And she said, I want to box with the boxing Rat Pack. And I said, I'm not going to box with Jolena, but you guys can. And everybody put on their stuff and said they want to box with the 8-time world champ. And Jesse isn't true.
How'd she do?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
she beat me up.
She's so slick. It was comical. Like, it was comical.
Exactly.
And she really was. And then she kept saying, when I was on the outside of the ring, and she's like, Mark, I want to spar with you. And I'm like, absolutely not. And then she kept talking shit. And then that worked with me. And I got in the ring with her. And she started like trying to load off, and I couldn't hit her for the first round. Like, I really couldn't. I was like, I had a real struggle with that. And then she hit me with the left hook, and I said, okay, now I'm gonna hit you. so she's awesome, and it was so funny though. But she refused to let us have that mentality, and that's what, when I started the boxing, I said, guys, I have to have female fights on the boxing show, because I owe that community that for me, and I'm going to make sure of it. And, and, you know, of course she's probably going to fight on the show, because she's 8-time world champ, and she's getting to the end of her career, but she's way too light for you. So I would love that. That fight would be awesome, but you're much like, she fights at like 122.
Okay.
Yeah. She fights at 122. Yeah. So, but in theory though, I want to have female boxing on the shows, and I'm going to. So well,
that's going to be huge for the Canadian boxing scene, and even the MMA fights. Like watching the unified, it seems like it's a step above of what Canadian MMA cards, for me, what I've been watching, at least the cards I've been watching, it seems like it's a step above.
It is. And Sonny's the one that approached me about the boxing. He knew I wasn't going to go back into MMA. I love boxing. Love. Okay, so I said, perfect. I'm old now, so boxing fits me better. And he has the MMA, and then he's partners with me in the boxing. And he was in Toronto hanging out with Dana White this last weekend. He called me 24 times to tell me how excited he is to do boxing with me. So we'll see what happens, but the first show's in May, and then December.
Where's the May card going to be? Do you guys know?
Yes, it's going to be at the River Cree Resort and Casino.
Cool.
So awesome. First show's going to be there, and we'll work that out. And I'm working on the hook, and that's been I always have a hook. So when you watch one of my fight cards, you're like, oh shit, he's going to have that, and that's always been my thing. I always search for the hook, and when I find the hook, that's when it's over. That's when, I sold out I sold out my last 30 MMA shows, because I always had a hook, but I would obsess about finding the hook.
Well, you brought in quality fights. I think that's kind of the what's kind of happening around here, at least I'm in BC, but it's like they're just not making the fights that actually people want to see.
Correct.
One guy that's going to knock somebody out or tap them out in like 10 seconds, and then, but it's like you're not actually seeing like two level fighters fight each other, and that's what people want to see across the board. It's like I don't want to go to personally, like me, and I'm in, like, I love the sport. I love all combat sports, but I don't want to see a total mismatch.
Right.
No.
All,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the
Any-
problem. That was the problem
Yeah.
with the MFC, because we had guys that were local now fighting guys from the UFC. And I would tell them all the time, guys, I love you. I like you, but I can't, you could lose this fight. Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is none of these fights. That's the only way I could charge people that amount of money for a ticket. And the same thing in boxing. I told everybody from day one, you act like you're the main event, whether you are a kid on the show that's 5-0, or you're the main event of this show, or Julia's fighting on this show. Please act like you're the main event. If you can't act like you're the main event, you're on the wrong show, because I'm going to steal the show. My job is to try to steal the show from the fighters, and the fighters have to steal the show from me. And when that happens, then it works.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work that way, when I was in the MFC, I did more interviews than all the fighters put together every show. And I started to look at the fighters and I said, this is awful. This is not what I wanted. I want you to get the interviews. I want you to talk to people.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk to me because I could talk about fighting from the second I wake up to the second I go to bed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's not hard for me to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You got to promote yourself. You got to get out there and
Correct.
For sure.
So, Julia, I'm from BC too. So BC.
Okay, cool.
And so, how did you get into MMA? Like, usually we hear the stories from guys, and it's like, I was fighting in school, and then I decided I was good at this, or I liked it. And it is a little different for a female to go through that, like, because not a lot choose that yet.
Yeah, no, I got into MMA like reluctantly. I loved kickboxing.
Really?
I loved Muay Thai and boxing. I had a couple like pro boxing fights, and I was scared of doing the wrestling and the grappling. And Lance actually was down coaching Rampage for, I believe, the Machida camp. And me and Lance Gibson Jr., who fights for Bellator, we drove him down there to California for his camp. And then I ended up staying, and they got a call from Strike Force that's like, hey, we need a 145er. And I was like, absolutely not. And I'm like, no, I do not want to do MMA. And I had lost my last kickboxing fights, and I was like wanting to retire. I think I was like 28. I was like, I'm not going to fight anymore. I lost my kickboxing world title against Jermaine Randami in Amsterdam. And I was like, nope, I'm done. And Lance was like, listen, you're not going out on a loss. Like, do this one MMA fight. If you hate it, you'll never have to do it again. If you like it, then it might be something to pursue. So I just stayed down in California for like that fight camp for 4 or 5 weeks and got ready. And I ended up like TKOing the girl in the second round. And she was supposed to be the next title fight for Cyborg at the time. But I was, again, like, I just started to learn grappling. And then I fought her. Then I fought Amanda Nunez like a month and a half later. Then I fought Jermaine Randami. And then I fought Rouse in like under a year. And so that's kind of how I got started in MMA. And it was like, but again, I was like, that's why I'm still fighting, I think, is like I started really late. Like I was 28, I think. And so yeah, it's like, but now it's a part of my life. It's like I'm well-rounded everywhere. And I'm obviously like a 4-time world champion. I really want to win the PFL world championship. Like last year it was such a close fight in my first round against Pacheco, who ended up taking the gold or whatever. But then I won my next fight, and then anyways, I'm banking on it for this year being like,
well, that's PFL money, right? That's bananas. Like when you win that's crazy, the money they're kicking out.
Yeah, I know. Like one night there's 6 millionaires, right? Like
that's right.
6 title fights. Yeah.
6 millionaires. Yeah.
That, I mean, that's a big topic, obviously, and man, he's slippery. So he gets away with the wife slap, but then also the money thing, because it's the noise of like fighters getting paid more is really quieted down, I feel. But an organization like PFL like comes out and does this. What's your thoughts on that? Because is it time to make something a little more formal and like unify all the rankings across the shows, or let them all just do what they want still?
I think so. Like, I think it makes it more legitimate across the board, is like, oh, like people pretty much know what like a rookie going into the NHL or
We do.
NBA,
Yeah.
anything's going to be paid, right? So the amount that like a camp costs for people, if it's done right, to like even get in an opportunity of like to make money, it costs so much money that you're like, oh, I'm making $2,000 to fight. Like that just seems kind of crazy, or 3,000 or 5,000 or whatever it is to start out. Yeah, it needs to be like, I think a little bit more controlled,
regulated.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that we've seen the numbers. We know that there's definitely some money there to spread around a little bit.
Yeah.
Add a few $100 on there.
Yeah, there's a few things that I think would just help the sport so much. Like I was even thinking about it, about like weight misses, like so missing weight by like 4 pounds, 3 pounds, or like a weight cut truly doesn't get super hard until you're 3 pounds off.
You're right. Yep.
That's not the weight cut. Like, so guys that are missing weight by that much, and it's like 20% of the purse, and they got the managers, okay, I'll cover the 20%, whatever it is, the back like end of that. It's like, I think like, well, what if they were like down around, like if you were going to miss weight, you're getting like, you're already going in at like, you're getting 1 round, like you've lost a round, like, or something.
Like, yes, make the penalty more severe.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Because like, I'm just so, that bothers me so much.
I agree.
It's such an advantage. It's such an advantage. And so that really pisses me off. And I think that that's something that could just like make our sport better if people like, you know, if it was like zero tolerance.
It's not a street fight. It's not a street fight. It's a sport fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. And it's like, especially, yeah. So that bothers me. And just some other things, like there does need to be testing for sure, like across the board, like just to make it more like legitimate, I think, and more, you know, I don't know, the stuff you hear when you're doing it, when you're in the sport for so long, you're like, oh my God, like I never even clicked in about that. Or yeah. And then I know they just got rid of USADA and they're going to do other testing in the UFC, but like the other organizations don't test. So like, come on, like make it all one, like across the board, make sure everybody's playing fair, I guess, because we are going there to hurt each other. And so all these like little advantages and stuff, just that kind of stuff bothers me. But
what about the rankings though? Because the rankings to me is like the messed up part, because you someone just makes up you get the title shot now.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's the same thing with other sports. Like, you know who the best team is. You know who's going, like, you know, and then it's like you shouldn't be allowed to just like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that would help if it was like every organization the same, you know, you knew who, like, oh, the number 2 guys in this organization, and I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not a promoter, but like I can't.
What Francis Ngannou did just now, it has to be the biggest thing in the sport ever for the last little while, when he said, no, I'm not fighting for that amount of money, and he bounced. And then he gets a fight with Tyson Fury and does really well in the fight, now getting a fight with Anthony Joshua, which is going to pay him double. He just made, why John Jones, why the rest of them are not doing that, like saying, you know what, Dana, no, that number is just not even in the realm anymore. When you're bragging that your company's worth $4 billion, you have to now say to yourself, you should have just shut up about that, because you can keep shit like that private. But you literally are bragging about it to everybody, and you're paying your people 8-8, 10-10 to start in the UFC.
I know.
So that's something not right there, because you're making that kind of money. So every year they're bragging about making $382 million this year and whatever, making, which means there's not even, I know guys that fought in the UFC 20, 30, 40 times, and they have jobs now in the city of Edmonton, Alberta. I know that. I know specifically who they are. I know who they are. It breaks my heart to see that. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. I used to manage and train Jason McDonald for 9 years. And I was yelling at him like from day one, first money he made in the UFC, Jason, open a gym in your city. People, we're going to use the UFC thing. Keep going. And he did that. And now, he's been off to the races forever. But the moral of the story was, I was screaming at him to do that, because I was like, there is no pension.
There's an exit plan. Like you're helped them, like, and
there's no pension with the UFC.
Yeah, no, and that's really sad too, because like there's going to be lasting injuries from what we do. Like, So to think, and I mean, we have it a lot better in Canada with our healthcare and stuff.
Yeah.
At least we're a little bit further ahead, but like it's sad to see a lot of the fighters what ends up happening. And and it's what percentages are they actually giving the people that are in the cage or the ring, or
right,
compared to what they're taking home.
Yeah, we haven't even seen the side effects from MMA yet.
not really,
compared to
not that long.
As boxing, we've seen it. We've seen every former boxer now that's basically brain dead, and we've seen the CTE, we've seen all that stuff. Now we're going to see it in MMA. We're going to start seeing it now in the coming years with the people like Chuck Liddell. We've already started to see that with Dan Henderson. I love both of them, but we're starting to see that with all these guys, and that's just the first wave of guys.
Bonner.
Oh,
like that was really sad. Like I remember doing an interview with him, and I was like, you could see his eyes, like you could see the damage. But what they good job, you got UFC super, like your fight with Forrest was like, right? Yeah. It was amazing. Right. Shot the sport through the roof, but like look at what it did to him. Correct.
How are you physically?
I guess like just sad.
How are you physically?
Pardon me?
How are you feeling physically?
I feel great. Like knock on wood. Yeah. I feel
ready
great.
to go again though.
It's something I'm really aware of. Like I'm really aware of it. And I'm like I know it's this fine line of like the amount of sparring you do and the amount of damage you take in sparring. And like, I've been in enough gyms where I'm like I'm some of the sparring matches I'm looking at, I'm like, that's like a freaking 5-round UFC fight. Yeah. Like and you can see from the guys, like concussions, like every week, like weekly concussions. And you're like, I mean, I've been able to be in the sport for a long time, and I'm smart. You have to be smart. And like, that means that you can't really have that big of an ego. Like you don't need to do, those kind of sparring matches where when you get into the fight, you're already like, your brain's already not all there because you've been concussed like multiple times. And so I've witnessed that along the years, and I've kind of just been able to stay like really, like I make sure I'm like really conditioned all the time, so that those kind of things, that's the way that I've been able to like keep myself protected, I think, is like I'm in good shape all the time. So at least those sparring rounds, and some of the guys, like I've gone pretty like sparred with guys my whole career, girls here and there, but I got great sparring partners and teammates that aren't trying to like knock my head off, because I've seen it. I'm like, whoa, like that girl does not need to be getting hit that hard by that man, like in sparring matches. And so
how did you meet Lance?
Well, I grew up on the Sunshine Coast, and my team would travel into Port Moody to get like sparring rounds and higher competition, because the Sunshine Coast is like pretty small town. So we would go to the Gibson MMA gym in Port Moody, and he was the like the big gym in the city at the time. Had the fighters in MFC or TKO, or all fighting in Japan and Hawaii, and like, so we would go in there and we'd be like, awesome, we get to go with some people that would really challenge us. And then when I moved in to start going to university, and we started dating.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But definitely through fighting.
It's through fighting.
Yeah, so it's been cool. Like all my best friends are through martial arts. Like martial arts is like, I've got to see the whole world through this career. Super grateful for it. And
how old were you when you started into that, and why?
Kickboxing, 15. Just to like, I wasn't a big team sport person. Again, I grew up in a small town, and I was just getting so bored, and not that I was getting into too much trouble, but I was like, And there was this kickboxing, actually came from Edmonton or Calgary. He was under Mike Miles, my coach. So he had moved to the Sunshine Coast, and once I started, training with him, I fell in love.
Who was the trainer?
Gabriel Ostovic.
Okay.
Yeah, so he had fought a bit for Mike Miles, and then he would come into the city and train with Lance. So I got introduced to it, and once I got introduced to it, it was like my whole life changed. I was like, all of a sudden, doing good in school and getting to go in tournaments, local tournaments. And it was like, it was actually the only reason I made a deal with my parents that I'd go to university if I was allowed to like keep training and fighting. And so that's how I got to go to MMA. And,
that's awesome.
That's really cool though. And I think it does change kids' lives. I mean, everything we've seen.
Yeah. It's like, we teach these wrestlers. So we help out with a wrestling team in Gibson's, and they're like, oh my God, this girl that had trained with us since she was 3 at Gibson MMA had moved to the Sunshine Coast and started like kicking butt and wrestling. And so they're like, she's such a nice kid. I'm like, that's martial arts. Like the discipline, the like, that's, people are like blown away. I'm like, no, that's what martial arts does. It's like, it kind of holds you accountable to your behavior.
Absolutely.
Yes. I tell all parents, we get in trouble on this show all the time because I tell parents, take your kids out of hockey immediately because it's a really shitty culture. My dad was in the NHL. My uncle was in the NHL. My son played high level hockey, and only thing I saw was a very weird culture that I wasn't a fan of. And my son was in martial arts from a very young age, and he got to learn that lifestyle. But when I saw other kids at high level hockey teams telling their mothers to carry their hockey bag for them, I kicked my son in the ass one time when he even tried to attempt that. And I said, do not go down this path of these kids, Dave, because that's not who we are. You carry your own bag. Your mother does not ever carry your hockey bag for you. But these other kids had that mentality, and it's like, I tell people, put your kids in martial arts. Best thing you could ever do for them.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, exactly.
Where's Gibson located now? Where is it located now?
We're still in Port Moody. We kind of shut down our big school after COVID. And so we have a smaller club, but it's all like people that are fighters basically. So it kind of was a blessing and a curse in a way because, it sucked that we shut down because we'd been operating since like, I think 1997.
Crazy. And
it was just too hard. It was like one shutdown after another. And then we kept like jumping through loops, you know how it was for right? It was like, okay, 6 feet apart. Okay, here's your sticker. Okay, wear a mask. Okay, punch in the air. And we were just like, by the end of it, we're like, this is not what we want to be doing. Correct. I'm like a full-time janitor / like healthcare. Like I'm checking people's temperatures at the door. Like, this is weird.
Yeah.
How did I get here?
Yeah.
But again, what all of our members said is like that kept us, like, even though we were like super restricted, it still kept us kind of sane during that period of time. So being able to do something, we were like just grateful. But now we're like, no, we're never doing that again.
Mm-hmm. So you're still running that, and then is there on the horizon? Who's fighting next?
Well, I hope to find out if I'm in the PFL season or how they're going to do that with Bellator or PFL. So we're just waiting to hear back. I'd love to be to do boxing. I'd love to be on that unified boxing card in May. But yeah, maybe. But yeah, because it would be cool to fight in Canada and have like I haven't fought in Canada in so long, so I have so many people that would like have been dying to watch me fight, and sometimes it's just like too far, you know. So that would be really cool. But yeah, I'd love to do some boxing and MMA depending on what this season looks like, if they're going to do the season or how they're going to do the 145-pound females in PFL.
Because they're together now, right? Bellator and PFL are together.
Yeah.
So you would think now that they would need you more than ever, right? Like that's what I would think. And then see about this podcast, which is really special, is that I have no shame whatsoever tagging them all into every episode 400 times because these episodes never die. They never die. Like you'll be like, it'll be like 5 years from now, like Lance, I was on that show 5 years ago, and it's like, no, it's just, this is just happening because if you believe in something, and then if I actually believe in something, because when I watch our guests, I start believing in what they're talking about. All kinds of weird things have happened, just as Eric Harris, who now plays for the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, now he was on our show and he was off, and he played for the Raiders. And I told him, I said, Eric, you're too good of a human being, right? He has such a good soul. And I said, they need people like you on teams in the NFL. And he literally was building a beautiful house on the water. You know, he had a big contract with the Raiders, and then he wasn't done yet. And now he's literally playing for the San Francisco 49ers. And he's like, he messaged me and he goes, bro, it is crazy. But what I know is you still have the fight in you.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
And that's the difference. If you didn't, we would be talking about something different, but you do. And so if you have the fight still in you, it's time. Like you have a window of 24 months or 36 months.
Yeah.
And in that window, it's time to pick up everything you can pick up on the way out the door.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. And it's like things just started to click. Like as things in my career, I'm like, okay, well, sometimes I felt like super physically strong, but not like as mentally strong.
That's right.
Career. And then like even when I fought Cyborg, I was like, holy crap, I never even clued in. And I'm like, it's such a level of experience that I've gained along the way of, it was the forum. It was a sold out forum in California. Like,
yeah, crazy.
I never even calculated amount of people or what a feeling like that would be. All my title fights have been in like, 3,000 people arenas in like Oklahoma or these other places. I never clued into that. And I'm like, now that I felt that, I'm like, okay, like my next experience of that size, I'm like, oh, I'll know what that adrenaline feels like. Or to not be able to hear anything because the crowd is like insane. Like I was just like, oh man. And so it's really cool because I can like pass that experience on to the rest of my teammates and people that I train with and stuff. But
do you ever get mad at yourself? Do you ever get mad at yourself for like, what I mean by that is, do you ever get mad at yourself for fights like a Cyborg fight when you go, you know what? I made more than this than I needed to make because she's not that much better than I am. And you say to yourself after, you're like, why did I lose this kind of sleep? Why did I lose all this stuff? Like, that's the mental game. People say all the time, oh, you need a sports psychiatrist. I'm like, listen, I know Lance Gibson's a sports psychiatrist without even being a sports psychiatrist. Okay. So what I'm trying to tell you is that people have to start understanding that, it's funny. I guess if you're playing against Michael Jordan and you look at him long enough and you start to go, wait a second, like there's these things. I trained Jason McDonald for 9 years. Okay. He was on a 4-fight losing streak. Never once was even talking about the UFC. I told him the only way I'm interested in you is if you want to fight in the UFC. I don't want to fight in Ponoka, Alberta. I don't want to fight we're bigger than that. And he said, and so he called my house and talked to my wife and said, I want Mark to train and manage me. And my wife said, oh, I'll get Mark for you. I said, hang up the phone. And she goes, what are you talking about? I said, hang up the phone. He doesn't understand what it takes to do this. Right. She hung up the phone. I said, if he calls back, I'll do it. He called back.
Yeah.
The rest is history. But I used to tell him the same thing all the time. I'm like, the problem with you is everybody's looking. I said, the whole time we were getting ready for the first fight, I said, they're using you as a stepping stone. They think they think that Ed Herman that just came off the Ultimate Fighter show is going to kick your ass. I go, Jason, they think you're a stepping stone. Can you imagine? And I kept saying that to him over and over in training. After he kicked the shit out of Ed Herman, he went on the microphone and he said, they thought I was going to be the stepping stone, because I said that to him 400 times during training. That is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that lights the fire.
When you saw Ronda Rousey,
100%.
when you saw Ronda Rousey get whacked by Holly Holm, everybody thought she was invincible until Holly Holmes did it, and then all of a sudden we all thought that Chuck Liddell was invincible until someone did it, and then we all said then he started getting shit canned all the time because we saw it been done.
Yeah.
So you have to be at that stage, Julia. You've been in the ring with these people. You have to get. Now would be the time right now where you walk in very much mentally different than
exactly
2-3 years ago.
Oh, completely. But yeah, it's hard not to be like, oh man, like I let this thing bother me, or I didn't these things, or you make a monster out of someone that does not deserve to be made into that, and that's where over the years I'm like, okay, like I'm just like, yeah, I'm ready. Like I'm staying ready. I'm making sure I'm getting better. I'm making sure I'm evolving, like all that stuff. But at the same time, experience has like been definitely an amazing teacher.
100%. Well, Julia, thanks so much for joining us today on the Me and Jesse podcast. And hey, we look forward to the next. We hope we hear it soon.
Yeah, I think you guys will.
And then we can also push the envelope a little bit with.
Yeah, we're gonna.
With our
Lit a fire under
I
these
say it shyly, but I have no shame whatsoever.
Yeah.
So when I do it, because I think that some people don't know what's good for them, and I do. So if it wasn't, then I wouldn't. But
Thank you.
Yeah. Our dear friend Jelena Marjinovic right now is training with Tyson Fury in England.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, so this is where she is now, because she's been on our show too as well, and people were tagged in, and her trainer is now Sugar Sugar Hill, who's been on our
Amazing.
show too,
Yeah.
who also is Tyson's trainer.
Yeah. Cool.
I could go through all the connections that came through the show,
Yeah.
but they've all been on the show, you know, and it's like,
Yep.
let's all go down that road together. But Julia, we really wish you, we pray for your success, and we want you to, we have 4-time MMA and kickboxing champ. We want to see 5-time, 6-time. We want to see that $1 million check handed to you.
Yeah, for
and then
sure.
we can all smile, and then we can all say, it's because she was on our show.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah,
all right. Well, yeah. So Julia Budd, everybody.
Yeah, she's just got a nice thing about her, and she's the girl that, you know, didn't make her way there by talking trash, by you know, calling down people. She really does have the martial art way about herself.
Yeah.
And there's no
the difference.
surprise, because her husband is Lance Gibson. Lance has been around forever. He fought in the UFC back in the day. I mean,
Right.
he fought back in the day when the UFC was, when you had to explain people what the acronym MMA stood
Yeah, what it was. Yeah, nobody knew what it was.
They did not.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, good luck, Julia. We're looking forward to seeing what's next. That's going to be good.
It's going to be fantastic.
Well, everybody, you know, big weekend in sports coming up. Obviously, once again, Oilers. I have to say it. You know, 13 in a row.
Straight.
It's crazy.
What about the Corey Perry thing? You think is that weird?
That he's banging Bedard's mom?
No, he just got signed to the Oilers today.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I missed that.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
the 750 minimum plus bonuses, right? And he's an Oiler. He's an Oiler. After
Hide
winning
your
13
moms.
in a row, after you win 13 in a row, you decide we're going to sign Corey Perry.
Hide your moms.
I don't know.
That's what it is. You
Yeah,
gotta hide
well,
your moms
something.
now. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. Remember to check out backscape.com, and be smooth.
And also, don't forget Crystal Glass, everybody, your clear choice for all your glass needs. Call 310 Glass or go to crystalglass.ca today for residential, auto, and commercial glass.
Well, what's on the docket next?
Next week?
Yeah.
Oh, we got guests everywhere, man. It'll be a surprise, everybody.
I know I put you on the spot. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks once again, Julia, for joining us. And yeah, go whatever team's not the Chiefs.
I couldn't agree more.
We'll see you next time, everybody, on the Me and Jesse podcast. Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse.